Morning, everybody. It has been an awful long time since I've done a video on my story. I think probably a little over 3 weeks. Um, and things haven't been too hectic. But um, the last bit that I touched on was on sort of round one with MPI, and then I I delayed doing another video because I'm just busy doing other things. Even though I don't technically have a job anymore, yes, I can be busy at times. But I also didn't want to, as the story gets further on and on, I hate the fact that I might be fucking boring people with another episode of Woe Is Me. And it's never my intent to do that. And because I don't want this whole thing to define my life, uh, from when it occurred till the future. And there are certainly plenty of people who are worse off than me in terms of their injuries or disability or inabilities, um, and how their lives have changed. And I met a ton of people like that in hospital. And of course, there's people, loss of limbs and spinal cord injuries and paralysis and that kind of stuff. And I think, as most of us all know, I'm really fucking fortunate for what I still have, what I still can do. Yeah, but of course, I still miss all the things that I could do as I did them before. So that being said, it wasn't like there were a few stages of the fight with MPI and then it's over. It's still ongoing. It was ongoing the entire time in hospital, and there were stressful times with them right up until the end, right up until discharge day. And I'm noticing now that one of the hand grips for my walker is in this video. Let me see if I can fix that a little bit. Boop. Maybe I'll be a little bit crooked now. But what the hell? Pardon the close-up. There. Why the fuck edit that out? Let's be raw. Or real, maybe. Or unedited or unfiltered. Anyway, as you can tell also, it's November. And this is 2 weeks of hard grown mustache. Almost 2 weeks. It's horrible. But you do it for a good cause. So, and things have gotten better with NPI. I think a lot of people are aware that we have a new case manager who is night and day, 100 times better, and treats us with care and respect. Came to meet us at our house, and is a very accommodating person who speaks professionally, doesn't talk down to us, and isn't rude. Um, to put it mildly, as many of you know, the previous one sure as hell was. So, even though things are better in that regard, and we've had a lot of things remedied, let's just say, nothing life altering, but certainly significant things, and we are still working on things like possibly getting our own wheelchair van and that kind of stuff. But so the organization itself, because of course everybody has a boss, and then they have to take it to people who approve things, and then they has so it's still an insurance company, and probably the province's favorite provincial government's favorite purse strings, and the institution or the agency itself is still the worst bureaucracy I've ever dealt with. And I mean, I've dealt with stuff with my employer, stuff with the city of Winnipeg, and of course stuff with WRHA. And each one of them, people have their challenges in dealing with. So moving on, the next sort of thing that was a significant feeling or development or theme for me was a term that we often hear um, in the CJS or criminal justice system, and that's the term institutionalized. Normally that's reserved or used by people who are incarcerated. And that's probably the bulk of what that applies to. But my experience was, my feelings personally were, after spending the amount of time that I did in hospital, almost 8 months, I think the exact number was 207 days, the hospital became my home. And that wasn't an overnight realization. That was after several bedridden, and mostly bedridden, days, weeks, months of realizing that I'm not just there for treatment, rehabilitation, surgery. It had become my home. And that's horrible. That is a horrible fucking feeling. I don't remember the exact night that I felt that or realized that. That was, a common expression is that's my new normal. But it was more than that, because that is where I lived. That is where I ate. That is where I slept. That is where I was washed. That is where I shat. Or removed a bag, as it were. Or had somebody else do it for me. And day in and day out, seeing the same walls, moving from room to room or ward to ward as my condition improved or changed. Having to watch my wife leave every day, although she was there for about 10 hours every day. At the end of the night at 8:30 or so, when visiting hours were over, she left, behind a curtain, and I had to say goodbye. And then I was alone all night. So after 51 years of the exact opposite of being able to sleep in my home, in my own bed, that is a mind fuck of an adjustment to have to get used to. It's really hard, because I wanted to leave. I just wanted to leave so many times, but I physically couldn't. And worse than the ability to not be able to get up and go, was what my mind did, and reminding me that I cannot yet. I can't go home. And when you're removed from that situation, it is really hard to stay positive. And you feel resentment, even to your loved ones, because they get to go home and have a normal meal and sleep in their bed and not have to be cared for by others. It's a lot like accepting defeat, not knowing when victory will come. And it can really get you down. And it did for me. And so it's hard to find positive little things every day, because there's so many negative. Having to take so much strong pharmaceutical medication. Having to rely on strangers who became, sort of known to me, to get me dressed and take care of me physically. So, you lose your independence, and you lose your ability to do everyday sort of tasks of daily living, like hygiene and personal care and that kind of stuff. And being able to get out and go, and being confined to your room. I didn't get the ability to sort of be normal until the last few weeks or month or so when the WRHA finally agreed that a wheelchair would be beneficial for me. So, being enclosed in your room, although it's not small like a prison cell, that's your view. I was lucky because I think almost every room that I had a window and I could look outside, and that helped, whether the weather was good or bad, or it was warm or cold. And I was there through spring, summer, and fall and winter, about part of winter anyway. Staring at the fucking ceiling became a thing. Counting the holes in the ceiling tiles became a thing. And you can only stare at your fucking phone or play games on your phone or watch an old show on your iPad so many times. And it just gets to you. And the other part of it was even the idea of going home, or home, became strange to me. My house became, the idea of it and the idea of going back became frightening because I wasn't used to it. I was now completely used to living at the hospital. Like I said earlier, I don't mean to repeat myself too much. No longer a place just for treatment, but a place where I lived. And although, of course, the circumstances and the daily life between, an admitted patient and a convicted criminal is, patients don't choose their behavior to live in a hospital and to go there or to be confined there. They're there because they have to be through disease or injury. And offenders choose their repeated behavior, and so it's a consequence of their actions. Whereas with me and other people that I met there and have met since, they're admitted in hospital and their life's changed because of somebody else's choices, which is, it really, really hard. And so I did, I think the things that, if I pray to God that nobody I know has to go through that, especially not for a long term. I mean, it's one thing to go for surgery and rehabilitate for a couple of days. Of course, disease treatment's hard too, because a lot of people are there for long periods, and that's extremely difficult. But when you're getting up there into the months, and there were people that were in the rehab ward, sort of my last place of staying, who'd been there for a couple years. Some of them were more than just medical situations; there were social ones too. And there's no denying that WRHA has responsibilities when it comes time to discharge someone. But yeah, I just hated fucking being there. And as I healed and as I got ready for home, especially during the rehab, and the time came where I knew that I had a discharge date, and that the discharge date, that in and of itself, within the system of the WRHA, is quite a fucking thing. That's a whole video in and of itself to talk about. So I'm going to touch on that another time, but you kind of have a couple of meetings typically with the ward doctor, who is likely your discharging doctor, and physio people, who are keeping track of your progress as to when it's going to be a safe time to go home. And so we had an idea first that it might have happened in December, which was a funny fucking thing, because here's how the WRHA operated. They want to know if I would be okay with or comfortable with. This is something that they're asking both my wife and I, going home at Christmas, simply because they knew that their staffing levels would be lower then, and it would make the timeliness of necessary care possibly delayed. So here's, picture this. You're in there healing from a whole bunch of fucking injuries or a lost limb or paralysis or something, and the hospital tells you, would you consider going home during Christmas? Because we're not going to have enough staff here then. That's fucked. They're checking to see if it's okay with you. Not, is it safe for you to go home at Christmas? Do you have all the modifications in your home that you need? I didn't. Do you have all the support from the organization that's going to be financially responsible for you? I didn't. Not everything that I needed at home was in place then, but they were putting pressure on me to go home. They want you, one thing that's 100% true about the WRHA is they want you at home as soon as possible, just so they can fill that fucking bed for the next guy or gal. And that is just so messed up. Asking whether or not you're okay to go home, telling you that they're not going to have as much staff as they usually do, so your care could suffer, is like saying, don't call the cops or firefighters or ambulance during these holidays, because we might not be able to get to you in time. Not, plan ahead, we're going to have enough staff because we know people will be on holidays and there'll be shortages. Figure it the fuck out ahead of time. Nope. Do you mind going home? We took a hard stand on that one, and it took some convincing of our ward doctor at the time, and MPI, and the doctor and people from MPI we were dealing with them were just fucking dicks. They were dicks about it, making us feel bad because we wouldn't go along with what they wanted. Never mind what the fucking patient wants. Just a fucking joke. But anyway, so another date was set later on in January, and what's funny, again, stuff that I stupidly would say or think was, I don't want to say certain words. 2007 me wouldn't have held back, but I just thought it was weak and embarrassing, and it hit hard at my, not my ego, but it hit me hard inside, because I was having panic attacks in the hospital about going home, about going back home. I mean, on one hand, I wanted out of the hospital so fucking bad for so many reasons, but on the other hand, I was scared. I was scared of going back to my own house because I didn't know how life would be. Thank Christ for family and friends. Thank God for a tough wife, a wonderful daughter, and her boyfriend, our friend who was living with us at the time. I remember the day that we were set to go home, and of course MPI was still refusing to pay for my prescription medication that the discharging doctor said I needed, and we were taking a stand. I think I spoke about that in another video, so, but at my age I tend to repeat myself, or don't remember that I've said something. But I remember being scared, and I remember when I walked in the door, I'm jumping ahead in terms of chronological order, it was like I was punched in the gut or kidneys, and I just started bawling like a baby back bitch, because it was a shock to enter my own home. which is a hard thing to admit as a guy. It's a hard thing to admit as because of course, you know, I was used to 2.5 decades of not fearing fucking shit, and like all the rest of us, cops, firefighters, or paramedics, you cast your well-being aside, and you don't worry about getting hurt because you have to just forge ahead and face whatever danger is coming your way, and not being scared of people with weapons, or people who are high, or people who are armed, and you charge ahead, not without a plan or without thinking, but nothing stops you from going into whatever dangerous situation and solving the problem. And just taking steps up into my house, I was shaking like a fucking leaf. And I was embarrassed about my reaction, even in front of people that I loved, family and friends. And of course the 2 awesome dudes from physio who got me up the steps and got me into the house. But boy, was it a relief. So anyway, yeah, institutionalized. I don't know if other people who who've been in traumatic or life-altering actions feel that way after extended hospital stays, but that was something that took. I still think about it nowadays from time to time, but it took months to heal and months to get over that, and it took not as many months, but it took several months to get used to being back home. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where going home is difficult for whatever reason, just talk to somebody about it. Look after this up here and this in here, and talk to your partner, talk to your wife, your husband, whatever, and never be embarrassed about it. I mean, I was, but I got over that with help, and because that was getting me accustomed to living in my house, reintegrated. Took some getting used to, but I had a lot of love and support. So if rely on that, and don't be ashamed of any feelings or the need to get help to get reacquainted with your home, with your bed, with your partner, you know, with daily life. And if you're really struggling, you know, talk to people in your behavioral health units or whatever support systems you have at work, or seek private or you know, personal professional counseling, because all of us matter. And I love you guys, and I promise down the road I'll have some more positive shit to talk about, whether it's part of my story or not. Thanks to everybody who watches. Take care, and we'll see you soon.